Magandang araw mga koprekto. Welcome to Proyekto Pilipino. Ngayon hong araw, ito ang ating pangatlong episode tungkol sa talakayan natin sa agrikultura. No? Kung ating matatandaan, yung unang episode po natin, kausap natin si Betty at si Harold tungkol sa bayan natin pangkalahatan sitwasyon ng agrikultura sa Pilipinas. No? Lalo-lalo na sila na nagtatrabaho sa mga NGOs na nakikipagtrabaho sa ating mga farmers. No? Tapos yung second episode natin, parang makita natin, 'di ba, naging parang proyekto in action na nagkaroon tayo ng sabi natin tomato crisis, ano. Kaya nagkaroon ng isang ehemplo kung paano pwede tayong magbuklod, magsama-sama para matulungan ng ating mga farmers, no. Ngayon naman sa ating pangatlong episode tungkol sa agrikultura, we are very very fortunate to have with us probably one of the most knowledgeable persons about the agriculture sector, hindi lamang po sa Pilipinas, kundi sa buong Asia, no? At meron siyang mahigit 3 dekada, no? Mga 3 dekada ng karanasan sa agrikultura. At kaya we're very, very fortunate and we're very, very grateful that we are joined today by Mr. Bruce Tolentino. Mr. Tolentino, welcome and thank you for joining us. No?
Magandang umaga po, Father, and magandang umaga, Carlo and Manolo and Mr. Claudio.
Yeah. Mr. Tolentino, alam ho namin na ang inyong karanasan sa agrikultura ay napakalawak, ano? Baka pwede niyo ho kaming bigyan ng kasi isang tanong namin palagi, lagi ho nating sinasabi na tayo ang una namumuno sa sa agricultural sector, no, back in the 50s, 60s, no. And yet eventually we're lagging behind our Asian neighbors, especially in the area or in the agricultural sector. Can you give us a background, no, a perspective of how we fared and how we're faring now compared to our Asian neighbors?
Okay, magandang tanong ho yan, Father. Alam mo ninyo, and narinig nyo na to sa mga balita, na yung mga Vietnamese, yung mga Thai, yung mga Indonesians, ang kanilang agricultural sector experts, dito sa Pilipinas nag-aaral. Sa Los Baños at saka sa International Rice Research Institute. Ngayon, ang nangyari ay kinuha nila yung karunungan na yun, yung siyensya na yun, dinala nila sa kanilang mga bansa at ginamit nila. Habang tayo, narito yung teknolohiya na na-develop sa Los Baños at saka sa IRRI, hindi natin ginagamit yung teknolohiyang yun. Iba yung mga patakaran na ating ini-implement kaya sa mga programa at proyektong kanilang ini-implement. So, ang pananaw natin sa kung paano tutulungan ang ating agricultural sector ay talagang ibang-iba sa pananaw nila sa kung paano matutulungan ang agricultural sector.
Okay, so
and if I may summarize, yung pananaw natin ay based on subsidy at saka trade control. Ang pananaw nila ay based on productivity and competitiveness. Yun ang contrast na nakikita ko. Okay. Sila ay nagko-concentrate sa productivity, tayo nagko-concentrate sa protection. Iba yung pananaw na yun at iba yung resulta.
Ano pong ibig sabihin nun concretely when you say you're focusing on productivity as opposed to protection? For example, okay, ano po yung policy manifestations nun?
Right. Sa budget mo, ng kagawaran ng pagsasaka, for example, yung majority ng budget mo ay napupunta sa pagdevelop ng panibagong binhi at saka panibagong teknolohiya upang mas malago at mas competitiveness ang mga pananim ng magsasaka. Dito naman sa ating bansa, Pilipinas, yung kadalasan yung majority ng budget ay napupunta sa price protection, sa gastos sa subsidy at gastos sa yung pamigay, yung mga free machinery na hindi naman ginagamit, yung free warehouses, free this, free that, and all very short term. Hindi long term productivity and competitiveness.
Nabanggit yan kung natatandaan nyo nung panauhin natin si Harold at si Betty. Di ba nabanggit nila na maraming programa ang Department of Agriculture at merong pondo sa mga programang yon. Ang sabi nga nila ho, Mr. Tolentino, na problema natin is hindi akma yung programa sa anong nangyayari, sabi nga natin, on ground, di ba? Hindi
Yes,
masyadong nako-consider yung talagang pangangailangan on ground. Ano?
exactly. Palagi ho nangyayari ay pupunta ang presidente o pupunta ang ministro ng agrikultura sa isang bayan at malaking meeting, tapos mamimigay ng machineries, mamimigay ng cash, mabibigay ng kung ano-ano na kadalasan hindi naman ginagamit ng mga magsasaka. Kung natatanggap nila, kung minsan tinitinda nila sa iba na makakagamit ng mas mabuti.
Okay.
So,
So
and
matagal na
very
hong
often
problema
this
yan.
happens right before elections.
So matagal ng problema yan, Mr. Tolentino?
Matagal na po. And I would trace it to the time of the mid-80s, if I may. And since the mid-80s, hindi na tayo nakaahon because yung mga programa natin from that time onwards ay really focused on short-term giveaways and trying to prevent trade from taking place.
Sir Bruce,
Galit tayo
ito ang problema para sa palay. So sa palay ang pinipili natin in a sense prevent rice from coming in cheaply from abroad, and at the same time instead of fixing the backward nature of the planting, to just give cash away to make everyone happy, both consumer and farmer.
Yes.
Okay, but what about other agricultural products? Like for 2 episodes, kamatis at sibuyas ang pinag-usapan namin. I remember on your Facebook may nagkwento na hindi dapat tigi-isang produkto ang titingnan kundi kalahatan. So
Yes.
maybe can you tell us about what about why do we have these problems na may ani itatapon, nagkakagulo dahil sayang naman, bakit umaabot sa ganon?
Marami hong magkakabuhol na dahilan kung bakit tayo nagkakaproblema. And hindi lamang sa bigas, kung hindi sa lahat ng produkto. It's actually the same problem. Sa onions, ang problema ay, middle of last year, right after election, itinigil ng kagawaran ng pagsasaka ang pagbigay ng import permit para sa lahat ng commodities. Why nangyari ito? Because nung pumutok yung sugar issue at naakusa si Senior Undersecretary Sebastian na in cahoots with the hoarders at kinasuhan pa siya, natakot lahat ng birokrasya na involved sa import permits. So their natural reaction was, huwag na tayong mag-issue ng import permit kahit ano. So asukal, onions, garlic, and soon tomatoes. And as a result, the domestic production natin talagang kulang na kulang. And come a time na yung domestic supply na yun nawala na, and of course, prices shot up. Now, nag-give in ang gobyerno, magbibigay uli ng import permit, papasok na ngayon ang imported commodities, bababa na ang presyo. Pero pabugso-bugso and wrong timing. Because it is ang gobyerno ngayon ang nagdi-decide kung ano ang timing at saka kung magkano at saka kung ano ang volume. Hindi ito ngayon yung private sector na who looks at his market and decides to import only for his market. Kasi yun lang matitinda niya. No private sector importer will import extra because they will lose. They will only import as much as they can sell. Kasi sure, magiging hoarder ka, but ang hoarding is expensive. Kailangan mo ng warehouse, kailangan mo ng cold storage, kailangan mong itago and kailangan mo magbayad ng kung ano-anong bribe to ensure that your hoarded commodities are safe or you handle them. So it is very expensive to hoard, and very few private sector actually hoard.
Kasi
Now,
malaking sugal.
malaking sugal yan. Malaking
Okay.
sugal. And palagi nangyayari ito kasi tayo ang isang bansa compared to all the others who keep a very tight control of all trade. All trade. Ang lahat ng ating mga ibang bansa dito sa ASEAN, wala na hong trade controls yan. Libre na ang private sector to import or trade on any commodity as much as they wish, and napakababa pa yung taripa. Dito sa atin, napakataas ang taripa, 35%, 40%, umaabot pa ng 60% para sa asukal.
So meron po tayong kultura, meron tayong kind of, if you like, a kind of protectionist culture or a
Yes.
culture that does not encourage innovation. Saan po nanggagaling tong kultura na to? Why are we so different culturally in terms of the way we think through policy?
Because we've always thought short term. And I think that with the very quick changes in government since the mid-80s, and I can say, for example, that I've been tracking this, very fast changes of the heads of the Department of Agriculture. On the average, the Agriculture Secretary nagsisilbi lamang ng 19 months.
Oh.
Wow.
19 months. Tapos napapalitan ka agad. Konting bulilyaso, palit ka agad.
So walang long-term policy.
Walang long-term
program.
planning.
Oh.
Actually,
So Bruce, ang nung dati, hindi naman tayo magkaiba na may suspecha palagi ang pamahalaan sa pribadong sektor. Parang lahat naman ito ng panahon ng kolonyalismo, may suspecha dahil dayuhan ng may hawak ng merkado dati. Paano nalagpasan ng mga kapitbahay natin ang ganitong mentalidad at tayo parang nandun pa rin ang ating kaisipan? For example, Indonesia and places like that, talagang mahigpit din ang hawak dati ng pamahalaan sa lahat ng mga aspeto ng bilihin. Paano nila nalagpasan ito?
Actually, that's an important question kasi yung let me see, there came a time in the 70s and 80s na maraming technocrats na pumasok sa gobyerno, not only in the Philippines but all across Southeast Asia. And yung mga technocratic, well-trained, Western-trained in fact, na officials na to, implemented programs which were outward-looking. And ang emphasis ay let's be productive and let's be competitive. Tayo naman, we've always stayed in the mode na dapat protektahin natin lahat at lahat ng imports ay bad and lahat ng trade must be only outward, not incoming. So I point back to the very frequent changes in government ever since the new constitution. And I think the 3-year cycle of elections has really been bad for us. Everybody is now thinking short term. And what can I do to make my mark, to show off
Within that period of time.
within that short period?
Pero
Bruce,
hindi po ba
within...
malalim din yung culture natin, at least among economists and nationalists, yung thinking na nanggaling pa kay Recto na kailangan yung national patrimony talagang kailangan protektahan. And also yung pride related to this concept of food sustainability na talagang malalim sa pag-iisip ng mga Pilipino. So ay yung inisip ko dito yung, yes, merong short-term effects. May effects nga yung short-termism. But there's also something about the way our nationalism is configured that makes us feel na food sustainability is a source of national pride.
Well, that's also the same case in Indonesia. In fact, they're using the term food sovereignty. But I think na in terms of I wish na we should be proud, not because our farmers are able to produce a lot, but because we are able to feed our people. If you look at our hunger statistics and our nutrition statistics, we really lag behind most of Southeast Asia, most of Asia. In fact, if you look at cognition, yung talents ng tao based on nutrition, talagang natatalo tayo. Father, you're an educator. You can see hungry kids cannot learn. And the effects of that we are seeing now.
Bruce, kaya nga
It's
gusto
a
ko
long
tanungin,
term.
bottom line, sa mga kapitbahay ng mga bansa, the average Malaysian, the average Indonesian, the average Vietnamese na they're in a communist country, mas mura at more widely available ang mga gulay at pagkain para sa kanila?
On the average, the food in the Philippines is 2 to 3 times more expensive.
Wow.
On the average for
Okay.
almost all commodities. So cheaper. If you have traveled to these countries, you can see. Kumain ka sa kalye. You ask your friends who live there, who are there, and the cost of food is so different and much lower and better quality. In the last few months where we had the problem sa sibuyas, marami tayong nakikitang meme sa social media na napakamura ang sibuyas sa iba't ibang bansa, dito napakamahal.
Yeah. So Bruce, when was that time, di ba? Sabi mo nga, ang daming teknolohiya nang galing sa atin, ano?
Yes.
Maybe it might be good to go back to the time that things were working well for our agricultural sector, ano? Then maybe trace what was not done or what was done wrong, ano?
Yeah. Let's go back to the key question of ano ba yung trabaho ng pamahalaan tungkol sa agrikultura?
Okay.
And it's actually a few short things. Number one, I can say ay yung tinatawag natin mga public goods. And public goods are what? Roads, bridges, electricity, telecoms, irrigation, flood control, and you might say the rule of law. Lahat na to, gobyerno lang nakakagawa. Walang iba. Hindi private sector cannot provide it. Gobyerno lang. And if government does its job to build the roads, provide telecoms, provide the irrigation and flood control, the private sector will follow. Right now, maraming ingay about, let's provide cold storage para sa mga onions. That's not the solution. It's only short term. And kung gagawa ka ng cold storage, gobyerno, ipapamigay na naman sa mga magsasaka, it won't work. What will really work is the government builds the road so that the private sector can build the warehouses and the cold storage. Kung walang road, hindi rin gagawa ng private sector ng cold storage. And that also explains yung narinig ko, palagi nating sinasabi na napakaraming middleman, napakaraming intermediary. The key issue is infrastructure. The reason is maraming middleman kasi yung bawat middleman can only go so far and carry so little. Kasi walang infrastructure. Kung yung only transport that you have is your bag and a basket, that's the only amount you will sell. But the amount you can carry in a basket, hindi ito pwede para sa larger market. Hindi ito pwede sa bagsakan. So, importante sa ating sitwasyon ang consolidator. So, at saka maraming consolidator. And bawat step, larger and larger amounts to achieve some scale na pwede mo nang dalhin sa Metro Manila.
So, if I get it correctly, yung perspective nyo po is not that the government should withdraw and we leave it to the private sector tapos complete free trade, walang tariffs. What you're saying po is kung papasok yung gobyerno, dapat po yung areglo nun ay efficient at mahusay. Hindi lang yung short term.
At kung papasok ang gobyerno, dapat ang gagawin nila ay yung trabaho ng gobyerno. Hindi yung trabaho ng private sector.
Yeah.
Saka kadalasan ang napansin ko, most of those involved in the agricultural industry, hindi sila masyadong lumalabas dun sa where they're needed. Kasi ako na-experience ko to kasi when I got into farming during the pandemic, which was roughly 2 years ago, the first thing I did was I went with my dad kasi may kilala siya sa mga UP Los Baños.
Yeah.
Inintroduce niya ako doon. Masusupresa kayo the amount of technology that's available in UPLB, which is, I would have to say, world class. But so I toured their agricultural engineering division. Ang daming mga prototypes of machineries. Ang dami. Tapos ang unang tinanong ko, ba't hindi ito nilalabas? Ang unang sabi nila is, one, hindi nila kasi, long story short, hindi nila yung trabaho. Ang trabaho nila is to come up with the machineries. It's not their job to market it. And you're basically looking at agriculture as maraming, yung sasabi natin multi-sectoral eh. Meron yung producing side, the scientific side, and it's the business side. And more often than not, ang napansin ko, correct me Mr. Bruce kung if I have a wrong impression, it's the business side that tends to be lacking, because nung tinanong ko, what do we do with these machines? Kasi I was very interested. May mga dryers tayo. Sabi nila, we just need someone to take the designs and mass market it.
Yeah.
But kami, hindi namin gagawin to kasi hindi namin trabaho. Yan. Sabi ko, what do you mean? So you need an investor, you need a manufacturer to get these machines and put it out in the market. And ako, hindi yun yung hinahanap ko kasi hindi naman ako pumapasok doon para gumawa ng mga makina. But it's there. And ano ako kasi, the business side, sayang.
Yes. Well, if you're a businessman, one of the ways by which you can make business is to innovate. And to innovate means bringing something to market. So yung mga scientists sa Los Baños are like that. Scientists nila. Happiness nila yung makagawa ng bagong teknolohiya. Hindi nila happiness
it's
yung...
there. Saka, ang sabihin ko lang, libre ho yung yung technology, pinamimigay ho nila.
Binayaran na yun ng gobyerno.
Exactly.
Through the university budget. So the next step is extension. Sino ang dapat gagawa ng extension?
Yes.
Gobyerno. That's the Department of Agriculture's job. Ngayon, nangyayari yung trabaho ng gobyerno, kadiwa. That's the private sector's job. Pinapasukan na naman ng gobyerno.
Okay.
Bruce, meron nagbanggit sa akin na dayuhan na gumawa ng thesis tungkol sa agrikultura. At sabi niya, several years ago, ang naging experience niya, ang mga iba't ibang ahensya ng pamahalaan, praning sa isa't isa. Dahil iniisip ng isa na kung naging successful ang isang ahensya ng pamahalaan, baka sila naman mawalan ng budget o kapangyarihan. Kaya mismo, ang mga iba't ibang ahensya ng pamahalaan na ang daming mga institute para sa ganitong research or iba yung mga hawak, hindi rin sila unified. Katulad din yung binabanggit ni Carlo naman na kakulangan sa pribadong sektor. Dahil tanong ni Carlo, nandun yung teknolohiya, bakit walang sumusugal na, di ba, gamitin ito? But masasabi mo rin kahit ang mga negosyante natin, konserbatibo eh. Diba? Papasukin lang nila ang pwede kang kumita agad kesa na talagang paghihirapan mo pa yung sistema. So, is there a larger problem here of everyone having their blinders, kumbaga?
I don't think so. Kasi kung competition among the agencies, across agencies, they're quite defined kung ano yung role nila. At saka defined din kung ano yung commodity na dapat nilang sinusuportahan.
Okay.
if there is any kind of competition that I would see, it is competition of some sort between Department of Agriculture and Department of Agrarian Reform. Kasi they serve the same groups. And also Department of Agriculture at saka Department of Trade and Industry, because yung gray area between planting and selling or development of manufacturing.
So
but
it's
those are
in
gray
those
areas
three
na-
that could improve their relationship with each other.
Yes.
Those are the three.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, I should add na because of the focus on protectionism, ang nangyayari, the budget of the Department of Agriculture is pushed to mechanisms that prevent trade from taking place, like NFA, like Kadiwa, like all the other things na pinapasukan ng gobyerno, na kung papasukan naman ng gobyerno, magsashy away na yung private sector. Kasi they cannot compete with government. Or they can undercut government. Or they can take advantage of government. Like, ang mangyayari sa machineries ngayon, kung magdi-distribute ang gobyerno, ang mangyayari, naku, of course, that will be public bidding kung sino ang magsusupply ng lahat ng machinery. So, the businessman who wins the contract to produce all of the machines will be the winner.
Bruce,
So-
this brings up an interesting question. Dahil sa proyekto, iniiwasan namin yung bintangan at ang pinopromote namin yung magkaisa at humanap ng solusyon. So in a better world, what would a government do para umalis na tayo sa kasulukuyang sistema and have an actually better one where all of us can have more fresher, more affordable and better vegetables and rice?
Right. All right. So, short term and long term. Ang short term goal natin is dapat lahat ng Pilipino makakain ng mabuti sa economical prices, di ba? And as a concrete example, a family in Vietnam right now can buy a kilo of rice at 19 pesos. 19 pesos. And a family in Bangkok can buy a kilo of rice, good quality rice, at 21 pesos. So dito, ang pinakamurang bigas sa merkado ngayon is about 38 pesos. Double.
Oh.
And sometimes triple pa pag pupunta yung quality rice. Why can't we do the same for our people? Dapat alalahanin din natin na karamihan sa ating mga magsasaka are also consumers. So, and kahit magtago sila ng kanilang production, that's only enough for a few months. So after a few months, kailangan bumalik rin sila sa market to buy their food. So low-priced food is good for everybody.
Yeah.
It's good for labor. It's good for farmers. It's good for fishermen. It's good for the canteen worker. It's good for the labor in the factory. For everybody. So we should try to make food as cheap as possible for everybody. So that's been the goal. That should be the goal. So competitiveness and productivity should be the goal. And how to do that? Well, provide the right infrastructure, provide the right seeds and germplasm and breeds. And kasi anong importante sa right seeds and germplasm? Yung right seeds will give us higher yields, as well as it will help us overcome yung challenges of nature. Typhoon. So kung may typhoon, you have flood-resistant seeds. Kung tag-init, you have heat-resistant seeds. kung malapit ka sa seashore, you have salt-resistant seeds. And so with these technology developments, the farmer can overcome the problems of nature. And that's really should be the focus of government research and development and extension. Now, yung research and development budget natin for agriculture is less than 1/10 of 1%.
Wow.
Less than 1/10 of 1%. That is compared to Thailand 3%, Vietnam 5%, Korea 30%.
Wow.
Wow.
Oo.
Wow.
So, and that goes into the R&D budget. And so the departments of agriculture in those countries put all of their focus into developing better breeds, higher yielding breeds, more weather-resistant breeds, more pest-resistant breeds. And so they're productive, and they're productive for the long haul. Kasi the moment you develop the variety, you have it forever. It's not short term.
Yeah.
It will take a long time to develop the variety. It takes at least with even the modern biotechnology with GMO techniques, you can develop new varieties for 3 to 4 years. Yung usual breeding techniques, 12 to 15 years. But you've got to keep working at it. So short term is let's open the gates. Let's open the gates to imports and let's lower the tariffs. That means that our people are able to get access to the high productivity that is in the other countries and cheap food that is available. And let's focus our budgets now kasi hindi ho pera yung problema ng kagawaran ng pagsasaka. Napakalaki yung budget nila. Ang problema ho ay nagagastos sa ibang sa mga interventions na hindi nararapat. So, short term, open the gates, free trade, and in the meantime, also provide ayuda for farmers who are going to be affected. Short term.
Okay.
In the long term, medium to long term, focus the entire budget of the DA and the government on productivity and public goods.
Okay, yeah.
Sir, may tanong lang po ako kasi nung 2022, syempre yung rice tariffication, hindi pala 2022, pero nung Duterte administration, yung rice tariffication law po, no? And supposedly that would reduce yung prices at least ng kanin. Ano po yung naging epekto nun and kulang pa ba yung epekto nun?
You will note that over the last year or so, problema natin inflation. Ang inflation, and now I'm speaking as central bank. Inflation has been a problem. At about 42% of the inflation is due to food.
Wow.
But it is not rice. It is due to sugar, onions, fish, meat, chicken, and all the other commodities. Before the rice tariffication law, all of the inflation was because of rice. Now, rice is stable, even through the pandemic, stable. In fact, going lower pa. And has not changed over the last 3 or 4 years.
But Bruce, you're saying na kung yung mga ibang tarifa or other things were changed, rice could go even lower.
Yes, because
Okay.
ang tariff natin on rice is 35%. So imagine bringing in the rice from Bangkok, 20 pesos, plus transport cost, maybe 2 pesos per kilo, 22, plus tariff of 35%. So 31 pesos na.
And then Bruce, yung sa tanong ni Leloy, ang naging impluwensya nung reforma na yon. Kasi dati monopolyo ng NFA ang pagpasok ng bigas, hindi ba?
Yes.
At sinusustento pa ito para hindi bumaba below certain. Yun ang tinanggal at binuksan sa merkado ang pagpasok ng bigas.
Yes, yes.
But nandun pa rin ang taripa, kaya mas mataas pa rin. Okay. I just
In fact,
wanted to clear that up.
In fact, yung taripa, ikumpara mo sa taripa ng Pilipinas, ikumpara mo sa ibang bansa, napakataas pa rin. For example, ang taripa natin sa mais, which is the principal ingredient ng lahat ng pagkain ng ating mga poultry, piggery, at kung ano-ano, ang taripa natin 40%. Ang taripa ng Vietnam, 2%.
Wow. So ang prinsipyo sa mga bansa katulad ng Vietnam, nasa interes ng bansa nila na ibaba ang mga taripa dahil yung cost of everything will go down as a result. And then panalo ang okay.
Yeah, ang pinakamalaking porsyento ng cost of production ng livestock, 60% is due to corn feed.
Okay. Bruce,
So,
yung sa... Okay, good. Go ahead, Manolo. Go ahead.
Kasi huling tanong...
sige, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Manolo.
Ang huling tanong ko kasi, ang justification para sa mga taripang ito, pinoprotektahan ang mga sektor, katulad ng mga magsasaka. Does it actually help them? Does it actually go to them? Or is it just the government protecting its own income that comes from the tariffs?
The tariff, ang usual na reason is pinoprotektan natin ang domestic manufacturers. That's why mataas yung tariff. For food commodities, on the average, 30-35%. In the case of rice, because of the rice tariffication law, yung taripa na kinokolekta ng gobyerno ay napupunta na ngayon sa support para sa mga magsasaka.
Okay.
Ito ngayon yung RCEF, Rice Competitiveness Enhancement Fund, which is 10 billion, 5 billion of which is for farm machinery na giveaway, and 3 billion for seeds, and 1 billion for credit, and 1 billion for training. So at least that napupunta na sa support services. Sa lahat ng ibang taripa, it goes into public revenue. Yun yung collection of customs.
Okay. So Bruce, just to go back, kasi ang ganda nung nabanggit mo na the goal really is to provide affordable food for everybody, no? That should be the goal of agriculture, no? In general, by and large. So that's a grand vision, so to speak, ano?
Yes.
Kasi ang isa ring laging napag-uusapan, baka mapaliwanag din natin, mabigyan ng kabuuan pananaw, ano? Is laging sinasabi na ang mga magsasaka, ang farmers, ay associated with poverty, no? How do we break that cycle also, no? How do we break that cycle? So, kasi if you provide cheap food, of course, makikinabang si farmer, ano? Dahil sa pamilya nila. But how do you also improve their income, their earning capacity, no?
Yes, okay.
Bruce, may pahabol lang akong dagdag sa ano, no? So, ibig sabihin ba nun, yung pagtaas ng pagkain ay dahil, sabi nga natin, di ba, maraming butas sa sistema at natatapon yung ano, kaya nagmamahal, ano? Nagmamahal ang pagkain, ano? Okay, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
In fact, sasagutin ko muna yung last point mo, Father, waste. Actually, yung waste na yun, parehong problema naman natin sa lahat ng ibang bansa, eh. Yung as human beings, yung wastage natin is about the same level as other countries given the level of infrastructure.
Okay.
Kasi saan nanggagaling yung waste? Kung bako-bako yung daan, nabubugbog yung vegetables, and you have to remove more pagdating sa bagsakan. But if the road is good, then you don't harm and damage the vegetables as much. And if there's infrastructure, yung laglag mula sa truck is less and everything. So a lot of the waste is really reduced by public infrastructure.
Okay.
Good warehouse, good road, bridge, etc. And kung may telecoms, pwede mag-usap yung buyer and seller para wala nang hintayan, wala nang mas mababa ang spoilage habang naghihintay. So in fact, yung sa atin nga yung image natin na magsasaka is yung mama na sumusunod sa kalabaw, di ba? Ang nakikita lang niya yung puwet ng kalabaw. Sa Vietnam, ang image ng farmer pick up, cellphone, at saka yung magsasaka.
Gusto kong idalin yung conversation sa cooperatives. Kasi
Yes.
I'm a firm believer in cooperatives, and I think it provides a lot of the solutions we should be looking at, meaning marketing, logistics, funding. Ang unang tanong ko is, how useful are cooperatives in the whole agricultural setup? And pangalawa, bakit parang hindi ho nag-take off yung konsepto ng cooperatives ito, considering as early as 1950s meron na ho tayong FACOMA.
Cooperatives are work given that you have organizing support. Kasi yung cooperatives, they require a lot of hand-holding para the structure will be maintained, and the elections take place, and there's good membership education, and that any issues with regard to malfeasance are handled very quickly. So you require an extension system, an extension service that supports the cooperatives in their functioning. Kung wala yung extension system na yun that supports the co-ops, magkakaproblema din tayo.
Actually, may magandang sinabi sa akin ang previous guest natin, si Harold. Sabi niya, kasi tanong ko rin sa kanya yun how are cooperatives right now? Sabi niya, within the Batangas, Laguna area, medyo maganda ang performance ng mga co-ops. And I asked, why is that? Sabi niya kasi, kadalasan yung mga members ng co-op sa Batangas, Laguna area these are previous OFWs who have come back here and decided to go into farming. And these are people who Harold said has a firm grasp of business policies, business management, proper business management. Kaya naiintindihan nila kung ano yung proper role ng co-ops. And kasi pag nilabas natin, ako naman naalala ko rin yung kwento sa akin ng tatay ko, when you try to explain what a co-op is to a farmer, unang reaction kasi sabi nga, tama nga si Mr. Bull, sabi unang reaction nila, ayaw nila kasi ang daming mga yung personal politics doon na lumalabas. Dati sino yung naghahawak ng pera. So ano ho yung how is this an education problem also, sir?
Yeah, kasi membership education kailangan talaga when you form the co-op, dapat there are like-minded group in a particular place, magbibigay sila ng share capital. Yung share capital i-invest, and all along the lines of one man, one vote, and that there has to be agreement among everybody. Everybody shares the gain, everybody shares the pain also. So that requires a major effort to build the group. So community organizing, group formation, membership education is a huge component, which I think actually is a public good. So again, trabaho ng, say, Department of a new Agricultural Extension System and the Co-ops Development Authority.
Yeah. Carlo, mahirap yan dahil yung sistema ng amo-amo, kailangan mo tanggalin sa mentalidad ng hindi lang naman ng mga miyembro, kundi yung mga namumuno. I remember even in OFW groups, nagulat ako kasi doon sa mga ibang mga OFW groups, ang mga namumuno, mga dating politiko sa Pilipinas na naging OFW. Mga dating mayor, mga dating councilor, nagulat ako. But parang technology transfer yun eh. So, sa proyekto natin, pumapasok yung sinasabi ni Leloy na kailangan talaga everyone has to have a civic mindset. Kasi kahit sa pag-oorganisa, ang dami mo mga mentalidad na kailangan tanggalin para umubra yung grupo. I had to
Yeah.
say that.
Yeah, and the next step, it becomes party list.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
So
I'm-
looking at our neighbors, are there are any of our neighbors successful in their agriculture system without the use of co-ops?
Carlo, can I add to that question? I was gonna ask the question kay Mr. Tolentino. So yung question ni Carlo, meron ba hong ehemplo sa ating mga kapitbahay, ano? Gusto ko rin sana idagdag diyan, Carlo. Meron ba example sa Pilipinas, a system that works, ano? Maybe if you could, to your knowledge, ano?
Actually, to my knowledge, having seen things in action in various Southeast Asian countries, the co-ops work in particular settings. There has to be a support mechanism, and the support mechanism is the extension system ng gobyerno, or it could be an NGO, or it could be the church, or it could be and the role of these support mechanisms is education and arbiter. Kasi sooner or later magkakaproblema. May nawalang pera, may nawalang produce, kailangan may magre-referee and find the solution, or else magbre-break up yung co-op.
Okay, so I guess ano, no, just to sort of begin to wrap up a little bit, ano. So nakita natin na napakalawak nung iba't ibang ano, no, iba't ibang masasabi natin bagay na nagkakaroon ng epekto sa agricultural sector. Andyan yung politiko, andyan yung infrastructure, yung well, I don't wanna say it, but maybe I should, ano. Andyan yung corruption, 'di ba? And so Bruce, siguro before I ask our kaproyekto to parang give their final comments or questions, na what would be for you, ano, what would be for you the key areas, no? Halimbawa, ngayon meron kaming posibleng proyekto na maybe with a small group first, ano, to work with yung grupo nila Harold, nila Betty, and to find a way to help the farmers they're working with, ano. So that we have to study the system. But for you, what would be a roadmap, so to speak, ano, in order to improve the plight of the farmers and the agricultural sector as a whole, no?
Yeah. Let me say na tuwan-tuwa ako nung sinabi ni Pangulong Marcos, Bongbong, na kukunin niya yung agriculture portfolio. Bakit? Because I felt na yung dapat gawin sa ating bansa with regard to agriculture ay mga bagay na ang Pangulo lamang ang may otoridad at ang Pangulo lamang ang makakagawa kung gusto niyang gawin. And pakiramdam ko na ang pinakamahalagang dapat gawin ng gobyerno is really to open up. And that requires the authority of the president. And open up and redirect yung pera na nasa Department of Agriculture to two things. One is to support the farmers in the meantime, and second, to really push productivity para makahabol yung ating mga magsasaka. So I think that I'm still wishing that the president will really use his power to do that, because only him has the power, nobody else.
Okay. Thank you. Leloy, Carlo, and Manolo, any final questions or comments?
Magpapasalamat lang sana ako, Father, sa guest natin, because for the first 2 episodes, of course, very micro yung tinitingnan natin yung nangyayari sa sitwasyon ngayon. Pero ngayon nakita na natin yung mas malaking problema, yung systemic problems. At saka sasabihin ko rin yung cultural problems that prevent us from doing certain things. Sa political science, merong word na ginagamit, yung path dependency. And if I can simplify it, ang ibig sabihin lang nun, pag may ginawa ka, ginagawa mo ng ginagawa ulit, dahil yun na yung nakasanayan, yun na yung kultura. At yung nakikita ko sa sinasabi ng guest natin, si Mr. Tolentino, ay meron talaga tayong path dependency at certain kind of knee-jerk reactions when it comes to how to feed our people, na baling-bali na at dapat talagang palitan na ngayon. At kailangan ng malakas na gobyerno upang baliin yung sistema na yan, baguhin yung sistema na yan.
Thank you, Leloy. Carlo?
Mr. Tolentino, would you agree na kasi may one of my most respected figures in history is Rafael Salas. And I'm very in awe of this man. And tinanong ni Fads kanina, was there a time when we were successful? And I think during the past election, madalas din ang sinasabi, we were self-sufficient in rice in 1968, if I'm not mistaken. No? And this was, from what I understand, is because of Rafael Salas, because he was put under charge of yung rice and corn coordinating council. But to make a long story short, ang nag-stand out sa akin dun is Rafael Salas was a management man and a logistics man, not necessarily a farmer. And from what I've read about the man, he was very successful. So is this something we need to develop? The thinking that someone who has a good grasp on management, on logistics, should be at the helm of our problem, the ones in charge of handling our providing solutions for our problems.
Yes. We need a manager for the Department of Agriculture, for the Department of Agrarian Reform, for all the line agencies, because you can always hire an expert, but a good manager, very often you cannot find. Now, Paeng Salas also had the wisdom to hire and keep for a long time Bong Tangko. Now, under Paeng Salas, the task of shifting yung research findings from the International Rice Research Institute to the Philippine Department of Agriculture took place. But yung delivery of that technology to all the farmers via the Masagaran 99 program took place under Bong Tangko. Now, what was done in the first Masagaran 99 round cannot be replicated now. And pahabulan to. The reason why it cannot be replicated now is because at that time, all farmers were forced to accept one technology, one package of technology, one kind of seed, same kind of fertilizer, same kind of pesticide, same timing, all over the country. But the technology has moved on, and it's very clearly now site-specific. The rice that you grow in Central Luzon is not the same rice that you grow in Laguna, is not the same rice as you grow in Mindoro. They have different seasons, they have different water requirements, they have different fertilization requirements. And so the technology that supports this should also be site-specific.
Naalala ko, sinabi niya, sir, ni Paeng Sala, sabi niya, this operation cannot be an armchair operation. Kailangan lumabas tayo, tingnan natin kung ano yung kailangan.
Yeah, it's a military operation. You do it for everybody. In fact, the Masagaran 99 was born at the same time as the barangay. Remember this. And in the barangay, the first set of officials, they had blood compacts. They would shelter them for days in effect a brainwashing operation. And the main program that they would implement is Masagaran 99. Matanda na ako. I remember this. I remember these things.
So, Manolo, any final words?
Yes, there are three sayings that come to mind from the past 3 episodes. Yung una was, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Number 2, a politician thinks of the next election, but a statesman thinks of the next generation. And the third that brings it all together is the concept of divide and conquer. In the past, ang nakikita mo, ang resulta ng paghahanap ng mga sektor na pwedeng bigyan ng biyaya para bigyan ka ng tiwala ay walang naalagaan at walang nananalo. Talo lahat. Dahil hati-hati ang mga resources, hati-hati ang polisiya, walang pananaw na para sa pag-uunlad ng buong bansa. Kung ibahin natin ito, katulad ng sinabi ni Bruce, maraming mga mentalidad ang kailangan siraan. At ang problema nito, maghihintayan tayo lahat. Kasi kung mag-iba ka ng sistema o pananaw, baka naman tambakan ka ng mga sumusunod pa rin sa dating ugali. So, ang palaging tanong natin sa Proyektong Pilipino, kung gagawa tayo ng mas magandang proyekto, siguro nagsisimula ito sa paggigiba, hindi muna ng ating mga galaw, kundi ng ating yung mga pagitan sa isa't isa. Na kailangan kausapin natin ang mga farmer at patunayan sa kanila na consumer din sila. At patunayan dun sa mga negosyante na ang teknolohiya na ginagastusan ng pondo ng bayan, pwede rin nilang gamitin at palaguin. At sa paraan na yon, mas mabagal, kundi mas malalim, doon lang tayo makakagawa ng mas bagong proyekto.
Thank you, Manolo. Mr. Tolentino, maraming salamat po for joining us, and we hope maybe in a future episode we can discuss very key elements that you said. But thank you for giving us the overall macro view of this situation. So marami pong salamat, and hopefully we can constantly consult you, especially as we try to work with the different NGOs. No? So this is Proyekto Pilipino. Marami pong salamat, and we hope you nabuksan ang ating isipan, 'di ba, sa malawak na perspektiba nitong sitwasyon, at sana ay sama-sama tayong makahanap ng paraan upang maisagawa yung mga iba't ibang mga sinabi, minungkahi ni Mr. Tolentino. So maraming pong salamat. This is Proyekto Pilipino.